Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome again here to another episode of You Are Enough podcast. I'm your host here, Gustav B. Archu. I hope you're having a wonderful Monday evening. And as usual, we are in for a treat tonight. I don't know what part of the world you're watching me from, but I just want to remind you of something, man. Just stay on this. If you're dropping in already, let me know where you're tuning in from so I can give you a shout out tonight. I hope you had a good weekend, but I know certainly it's not a great weekend everywhere else in the world, right? Things are happening, bombs are dropping in different places, but the one thing you cannot worry about is the things you cannot control, right? You can only focus on the things you can control because there is a circle of influence and there is a circle of worry. Your circle of worry are the things you worry about, but you really cannot make a difference. Your circle of influence are the things you worry about, but you can actually influence. So, yes, I understand there's a lot of stuff happening in the world today. The world is maybe at the brink of a next global confrontation that might not have been seen in a while. But let me tell you, that too shall pass. It's happened many times before. It shall pass. What you must focus on are the things you can control. You must focus on your own house before you worry about the White House. Don't worry about the White House. Worry first about your own house. Worry first about your own economy. That is not being selfish. That is just being responsible because that is what, as an individual, as a responsible person, you must do, right? So here's the deal. Here's what we're going to be doing today. Just give me a second here. I just want to make sure I'm able to get going here and make sure I can uh, make sure the sound is working and I can see everybody and I can see all the comments you're bringing and all of that. All right. So here's the deal, though. Tonight we're going to have a jam-packed evening. Okay, and our evening tonight is going to jam pack because I have something very powerful I want to talk to you about. And listen, if you're just joining me again, you're welcome. I'm glad to have you on the line. It's always a great plumping pleasure to have you. But let me ask you a very honest question. If your entire financial plan is to save money, I want to tell you right now that you are slowly getting poorer. Not reckless, not gambling, but saving alone cannot be your strategy for 2026. Tonight, I will walk you through why saving alone is mathematically flawed and what the wealthy do instead. And let me tell you, and I want you to drop owner down in the comment section if you are with me already. If you're watching me, drop owner if you believe in ownership. And I want you to drop saver if you were raised to just save money like most of us were. Be honest here, guys. This is no judgment zone, okay? And I hope you have a pen and a piece of paper to write. Listen, let me tell you something. The reality of the time we live in, you cannot get ahead with savings alone. I understand the Federal Reserve talks about 3% in inflation. The government talks about 3%. The real inflation is 8%. And if you don't know what inflation is, inflation basically is a mechanism by which the cost of living rises. So what that means is the same amount of money today, what it can afford in 1 year when the cost of living rises, it cannot afford as much. So you must understand, once you understand the concept of inflation, it makes it understandable why you cannot have as your strategy to save money in 2026 and get ahead. I need you to understand saving is the first level. You must find a way to multiply your money. Saving alone will not work because think about it this way, guys. Let's even take the official numbers that says inflation is 3%. Typical savings historically, this is savings accounts now. Typically, savings accounts pay you between 0.5 to about 1% in interest, right? So if inflation rate is 3% and your savings account is giving you 1%, what that really means is you are losing 2%. I hope you're understanding the arithmetic here. This is not math. This is just arithmetic, guys. You lose 2% in purchasing power annually. And when you're losing 2% in purchasing power, what that really means is that your wealth is slowly dwindling, even though it seems like it might be rising. Because wealth is actually purchasing power. It's not really account in your balance, right? You must understand. It doesn't make any sense to have $10,000 in your bank account, and that $10,000 could today can only rent one bedroom in New York. Right? So from that basis of that standard, you're not wealthy. But let's say you have $10,000 in your bank account, but you are living in a place in a village in Iowa where you could be paying rent for $500 a month. Okay, you're wealthy. You understand what I mean? I really just want to break this down in a way that it makes sense, right? And think about it this way, guys. Let me give you a simple example here, right? Let's take $100,000. Let's say you have $100,000 in your savings account and it's earning 1% in interest on the savings account, right? So that's about $1,000 a year. So if you run that $100,000 for 20 years, which means you leave it in that account for 20 years at 1%, at the 21st year, you're going to have $122,000. So the interest that 100,000 has generated over 20 years is just 22,000 at 1%. But remember, in those 20 years, the real purchasing power has shifted. I can guarantee you that in those 20 years, the real purchasing power is more than 22,000. So even though that money has generated 22,000 in growth by interest rate, the purchasing power makes that amount not enough. But now, you are really not losing dollars, but you are losing the ability to buy the same things you used to be able to buy, but this time you need more money to do that. Think about it for a second. When was the last time you really had a salary increase at the same rate as inflation? I want you to be honest with yourself. When was the last time you really had a salary increase where your boss called you in the office and said, hey, you know what? We are going to increase your salary. A lot of times it might be 1%, maybe 0.25. I remember when I came to America, started working as a nursing assistant, we were always looking forward to that 1.25% raise for 25 cents, 75 cents. Right? It felt like a big deal. It felt like something massive was happening to our lives. But think about it. When is the last time you really had a raise? Remember, if inflation is growing at 2.5 to 3% a year, technically your salary has to be increasing by more than that for you to be in a positive state. If it's increasing only by 3% a year, you are basically increasing at the speed of inflation, right? So if it is increasing by 5%, it means you are 2% ahead. Now, when you understand that, you realize why you see as the years go by, if your salary is not changing, it seems like you're getting poorer because you're actually getting poorer, right? And I understand why most of us, especially first, second generation immigrants, right? Why we get caught up in this trap. And I don't want you to feel bad about it because they say ignorance is no excuse, of course, but acknowledgement of ignorance is the beginning of wisdom. I hope you understand me here. Now, there is a reason why a lot of immigrants feel that way and they trust savings and they want to save so much money without thinking about how to duplicate that money. The first thing is that savings feel safe. It sure does. It feels like, my money is in a safe place. It's not going nowhere. I'm not investing it in the stock market. I'm not investing it in something that is risky. So it feels safe. But you don't realize that even that safety costs money because the same bank that you save your money in is taking that money and loaning it out to people to buy cars and pay them 8% and they come back and pay you 1 or 2%. It's also the responsible thing to do. Most of us were trained that way. We were raised to know that you just have to work hard, save your money, work hard, save your money. So that's the responsible thing to do. That's what our minds have been wired for 30, 20, 40 years, right? And then all of a sudden, there's a guy online, Mr. Archu, telling me, you know what? Saving is not the way that is going to take me out of poverty. Yes, it's not going to take you out of poverty. Saving is not going to take you anywhere much. Saving is important, and I'll explain to you as we go, but that's not going to be your strategy. If your strategy for 2026 is saving, know that you're going to fail. The third reason why a lot of us psychologically are affiliated and attached to savings is discipline, right? Saving requires a certain amount of discipline, and discipline indicates responsibility. And we feel good when we are looked upon as responsible, or at least when we see ourselves as responsible. But that's incomplete. We cannot talk about that without talking about the other side of it, right? Who taught you that savings is enough? Most of us were taught by our own parents because we saw them save. We saw them playing jangis. We saw them play. And for those who don't understand, jangi is also called susu in parts of South of West Africa. And in different communities, they have the same thing. In the Chinese community, in the Indian community, jangi is like a club, right? A multitude of people come together. They put money together and they give one person every month to use it for something. But the reality of the matter is, if you're the person getting that money first, you are at an advantage because you are getting an interest-free loan. But the person who gets that money at the end of the row, let's say 1 year later, you've basically been contributing money that is depreciating in value over time. That's why I tell a lot of people who come to me for coaching, I say, unless you want the social aspects of belonging to groups like that, or maybe it's a group that puts money together and then they charge a certain interest when they loan it out to people. Otherwise, your money is not really making money. Your money is actually losing value. You have to be careful, right? But these are things we were taught by our parents. For most of us who are immigrants, they taught us you have to be frugal, you have to save your money, which is a good thing. But they didn't teach us that next level, and that is one of the that is the stuff I'm going to be talking about you today, right? Another very important psychological aspect that recognizes and explains why is also the immigrant survival mindset. When immigrants travel, especially coming to countries like America, it takes a while for that mind to relinquish the grip that survivor has on the mind, because the mind hasn't started recognizing that there's a possibility for abundance, that where we come from might have necessitated survival, but where you are in right now, there is possibility for growth, there is possibility for advancement, there is possibility to certainly for you to become more by increasing your skills, by increasing your earning power, by increasing a business you are doing, and all these different things. So that survival mindset to kind of sets like a grip sometimes, right? We don't want to, but the first thing we want to do is to save, and you don't think outside of how to duplicate that. Guys, if you hang with me on this video, I'm going to give you some information that will completely blow your mind, right? And this is going to help you because you need to understand something. Yes, we're taught to survive, but most of us were never really taught to own anything, right? Saving in our minds and in our subconscious means protection. When I'm saving, I am protected. It means if something happens, I should be fine. But you have to understand investing is about multiplication. Both are needed, but most overprotect and under multiply. I want to talk to you today about that, right? Because think about the math this way. Just take an average S&P 500 index fund that grows at 10% a year, right? Inflation is at 3%. So what that really means is if, let's say, you invest $10,000 in an S&P 500 fund, it grows by 10%, inflation is 3%. So you are netting 7%, right? Because the money grows by 10%, inflation eats out another 3%, at least you're still 7% ahead. So that spread of 7% over decades changes everything, guys. Structure creates that gap, not effort. I want you to understand me. Structure is what closes that gap. It's not effort. That's where the difference lies between somebody who is an ultra saver and somebody who saves for the necessities and then multiplies their money through investment. It's not about effort yet. It's about a structure, a system. Now think about it for a second. I want to give you a realistic example. And if you're listening to me, note this. Let's say two people. You have Johnny, you have Eddie. Or you have Johnny, you have Monica. They both have $500 every month. Johnny is a saver. He saves his $500 at 1% in his interest in his savings account. And Monica is investing her $500 at 8%. You know what happens after 20 years? Johnny wakes up after 20 years of saving $500 at 1%. He has $132,000 in his account. But Monica, on the other hand, who've been investing her $500 at 8%, has $295,000, close to $300,000 in her account. That's 2 times what Johnny has. What is the difference? The difference in that case hasn't been the effort, because both of them were doing the same thing. They were using the same amount, but they were using a different structure. That's what I want to talk to you about today. So this is what exactly you need to do if you're finding yourself in that situation. Because I had somebody come up to me a few months ago, And this person needed help with just giving them some structure around their money. And the first thing I realized is that this person had $100,000 in his savings account. And I asked him, what do you plan to do with that money? He said, well, it just feels good. He likes to wake up knowing that he has 100,000 in his savings account. I said, okay, how much is the interest? He said, well, they pay him last year, they paid him about 1%. I said, okay, even if you put it in a high interest savings account, it will still be about 4%. Okay. But here is the deal. I asked him a third question. I said, what is your living expenses? And his living expenses were barely $5,000 a month. So let's say he wants to save up 6 months of living expenses, which is what I generally recommend, right? That is called your rainy day fund. That is called your emergency fund. That is money that needs to be available at the blink of an eye to use for anything negative that happens to you. Maybe you lose a job, you have an accident, something. And I said, okay, why don't you save, even if it's 6 months? That way you feel confident that you have 6 months within which, if anything happens, you can be for 6 months without working and your family will still maintain the same lifestyle. And then the other part of it, you take that money and you invest it in a basic ETF or an index fund. Because, yes, I want you to understand me here. Safety net matters, all right? But you need to go above that. That's why I say it, and I say it very clearly. If your goal, your strategy this year is only to save money, know that you will not end up on top. You end up behind instead. And I'll prove that to you, right? So step number one, you certainly want to have a 3 to 6 months emergency fund. That's where savings come into play. You want to put that money in a safe place where you can always access it in a short notice. You want to put it in a high yield savings account, maybe 3-4%, right? Don't invest it in the stock market. Don't invest it in an ETF or in an index fund just because the stock market is volatile. The time you need the money, the stock market might be down. And if you have to sell your assets to get the money out, you might be selling on a loss. There are other techniques by which you could still access that money, and I'll talk about that in a separate video. So by the way, if you are not subscribed to my channel, if you are not following me on Instagram, on Facebook, go ahead, follow me so that when I talk about these important things, you will learn and you'll be able to change your life. Now, the second important thing you need to do after you make sure you have that emergency fund ready, you want to kill high interest debt. Let me tell you something, guys. And I see this mistake all the time. I see people rushing to invest before killing high interest debt. Trust me, if you have any debt that is above 7-8% and above, it's better for you to finish off with that debt first before you invest. Let me tell you why. Because there will be negative growth for you. Imagine that you are investing money that is growing at 8% and you are turning around paying a credit card that is 25% in interest. You are losing money. The arithmetic doesn't arithmetic. The math is not mathing, as they say. The arithmetic is not arithmeticing. Right? I think I like that one. I think I might go ahead and secure the intellectual property for that one. Can somebody write it down in the comment for me? The arithmetic is not arithmeticing. Please, somebody drop it in the comment for me so that way I will come back to it. Nobody should go and get the intellectual property for that one. I've already gotten that. Okay. I'm calling the United States Intellectual Property Office tomorrow. The arithmetic is not arithmeticing. But guys, here's the deal. Here's the deal. You want to kill high interest debt because the number one killer of any wealth initiative is high interest debt. And most of the high interest debt you have are credit card debt. The reason why is because credit cards are unsecured debt. Unsecured means there is no asset backing that debt. Your mortgage will not be so high. Your mortgage interest, there were times when it was down to 3%, 2%. Now it's about averagely 6%, I believe. The rates have dropped now, so you can go refinance. You might be even down to 5%, right? The reason why mortgage rates are lower is because the house is a collateral for that loan. So if something happens, the company can sell the house and they can get their money back. But with a credit card, there is no collateral. The only collateral is your credit rating. They are counting on the fact that you will do the honorable thing because you said you were going to do it. And also you don't want your credit rating to drop. So you will pay the credit cards. But because it is uncollateralized debt, they are charging you head and nail. They are cutting your neck. An average credit card interest in this time and age we are living in is between 22 to 28%, guys. That's a lot. It means if you owe You are paying $28 in interest. You know what that means? Let me break it down in financial terms. Let me paint the picture with numbers in front of you. Let's say you have a credit card balance of $5,000, okay? Let's just take $5,000 and your interest rate is 25%. Generally, the credit card companies will charge you about 3% as minimum payments every month. In this case, you'll be paying $150 a month as minimum payment. That sounds manageable, right? At least it's not too bad. You have a 5,000 credit card balance, you're paying $150 a month. But listen here, guys, let us go closer. Take a look at that. Just walk a little closer to those numbers. Let's see what happens. So here is your monthly reality. You are paying $150 monthly minimum payment on that 5,000 credit card debt, which has a 25% interest rate. What it really means is that of that $150 you pay every month, only $104 of that amount goes towards $104 of that amount just goes to pay only the interest. I need you to understand me here, guys. The only amount that goes to pay the actual debt, which is the principal of that debt, is $46. I want that to sit in with you for a minute. I want you to understand, isn't that modern day slavery? Isn't that modern day slavery? And let me tell you something, debt is not a bad thing. Once you understand the concept of debt and leverage, you can know how to manage these things. There are times in my life where I've taken my credit card debt and instead refinanced it with a cheaper interest debt called a personal loan. So I take a credit card debt for 25%, I go refinance it with a personal loan for 7% or 6%. You understand what I mean? In that case, I no longer pay 25% in interest. I am paying 6%. Now, even though I still carry the balance, but the cost of that money is not as high. When I'm making a payment on that balance, a big chunk of the money goes towards the principal. Because in this case, I am giving you 25% interest rate on this $5,000 card. You are paying $150 in minimum in payments. $104 of that amount goes towards interest, and only $46 goes towards the debt itself. So what that really means is that you worked, you sacrificed, you sent in $150, and only 46 of those $150 is working towards your freedom from that chain of the debt. The bank kept the rest as the cost of giving you that debt. Guys, that's why I say high interest debt, especially credit card debt, is the number one wealth killer. It's not even how hard you work. It's not even your income. It's high interest debt. Trust me. Because here is the long-term trap. If you only make minimum payments on that $5,000, it is going to take you 5 years to clear that balance. And you know how much you would have paid in those 5 years? You would have paid a total of $8,700. So you have paid $3,700 in interest alone for a $5,000 loan. So you've paid about 74% of the value of that loan in interest. Think about it. So you borrowed $5,000 and you paid back $9,000, up close to $9,000. That's not convenient, guys. That's negative compounding. That is actually, you might think you are running. Think about it. It's like you are on a treadmill, but you are running the other way, right? You think you are running, but you are instead going backwards. That's what it really means. That's why once you understand the stuff, it makes a difference. Because I want you to think about it now. Let's contrast that with a situation where, imagine that $150 a month you're paying to the credit card company, you were instead investing that in an index fund at 10%. Over those same 5 years, you will have $11,600 as balance in that account. But you know how much you would have invested? You would have just invested $150 a month, which times 1 year is 1,500, is 1,800, right? Times 5 years is only 1,800, 5,800 times 540. That's what? That's about 9,000. So you would have invested about $9,000, but you would have gained about $2,700 in growth for that same money. So I want you to understand this thing, guys. Same amount of money, different paths. One of them, you pay $3,700 to the bank. The other path, you make $3,700 in growth in your investment portfolio. Your money grows. Same payments, same $150 you pay a month, just a completely different direction. That's why I tell you this money game, it doesn't start first with the money. It starts with this thing. That's why I focus a lot on changing your money identity, on teaching you how to think about money first, on teaching your emotion how to handle the emotions of money, on teaching you how to rewire your minds and walk away from some of the things we have been conditioned by the way we were raised, by the messages we were told, by the messages we were informed about how money works. Once you free yourself from that understanding, you rewire your understanding of money, you change your emotional blueprint, everything else changes about money. Remember, money is just a conduit, it's a lubricant, right? That's really what it is. You just use it to better your life, to do different things, to buy freedom, to buy experiences and things like that. But if you don't understand this mindset around how it works, it becomes a problem. And it's not complex. Why it is complex now is because most of you watching me are in your 30s, in your 40s, and some of you 50s or 60s. And you've thought about things in one way most of your life. And now you have to think about it another way. So it becomes a little bit challenging because your mind is trying to change the way it thinks. That's why, guys, it might sound repetitive, but let me tell you something. The only way you change mentally and emotionally is to hear the contrary message over and over until it becomes second nature to you. I know that because this is what I do. I have been doing this for the last 17 years, not only with money, but about purpose, about changing your life. Because when you're trying to change your life, you cannot think one way going north, meanwhile, you're trying to change your life going south. It's not going to work. It's not going to work, guys, right? So you need to understand this. Here is the brutal truth. The 25% debt compounds faster than 10% in investing. I hope you understand that. When you're investing, the 10% that you're investing compounds. But when you're paying debt, the interest, which is 25%, compounds faster. So you cannot build wealth while feeding a 25% fire. You are trying to grow your account on this side, on the stock market, or in any investment, 10%, 11%, 12% returns. At the same time, you are paying 25% to the bank. Boy, that is ludicrous. That is crazy. I mean, how can you build like that? So every month you delay, the bank eats first. That's how it goes until you either finish paying the credit card or you surrender in the middle, and that affects your credit rating. And nobody wants to give you a loan again. Or if they give you a loan, they charge you even more interest because your credit rating is no good. Your credit rating is basically your financial identity card. That is really what it is. It's just your financial DNA. It just tells creditors that this man can be or woman can be trusted or not. Right? So I hope you understand that, right? If your money is working at 10%, but your debt is charging 25%, you are not building wealth. You are financing the bank's wealth. I want you to note that down. I want you to breathe that in. I want you to get in. If your money is working 10% in the investments you have on the stock market, but you are turning around, you're paying 25% in credit, you know what? You are not building wealth. You're financing the banks. So if you have a credit card right now, there are a few things I think you can do. Number one, you want to try to pay that balance off the fastest possible. But of course, I also understand these are tough economic times, so you might not be able to pay it as fast. The other thing you can do, you can explore private lending. You can explore, a personal loan. Walk into your bank and ask them if they can give you a personal loan. What is the interest rate? Because trust me, if you take a 25% credit card and you refinance it with a 15% personal loan, it has saved you 10%. Of course, it's still not as good as 10% returns on the stock market, but it has saved you 10% in interest. And over the 1 year, 2 years, it will take you to clear that credit card. The interest rate would have reduced by 10% because you've saved yourself, right? So if you have a credit card that is 22, 25%, you want to call the credit card company, ask them if they can reduce that percentage, because credit card companies do this. A lot of people don't understand these things. Pick up your phone and call Visa, call MasterCard, Call American Express. Tell them that you've been a customer for X number of years. You have this amount in credit card balances with them. Can you guys do something? Can you reduce the interest rate for me? You understand? Let me tell you why they will do that. Because they will rather you pay a lower interest rate than to default on the payments. Because when you default on the payment, they have lost their money completely. And they want to reduce your risk of defaulting. So they want to work with you and see what they bring it down to. If they bring it down to 20%, 21% from 25, that is 4% less. Now you take that 21%. If you get a personal loan, that personal loan is charging you 10%. Now you've already cut off another what? 11%. So you've cut off 15% from that interest. Even though you're paying the monthly payments, a big chunk of it is no longer going towards interest. That's how you start recovering from that. I'll do another video just on managing debt, right? I have been through it all. I've filed for bankruptcy. I have foreclosed on homes. I've tried to negotiate a short sale with the mortgage companies. I have paid off credit card debt. I have done all these things. So I know. I am not talking out of just reading stuff. I know what I'm talking about. When I'm talking to you, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not joking. These are the things that will keep you behind, and you'll be wondering why you make so much money yet you don't get ahead. You don't get ahead because the ship is leaking too much. You are putting in 1 liter of water, the ship is leaking out 1.5 liter. It doesn't make sense. It's like you go to the stream with a basket, right? You need to understand high interest debt is not a budgeting issue. It's a financial emergency. You don't invest before you stop bleeding. High interest debt, credit card debt is a financial emergency. You don't budget. You don't try to no, let me be investing. No. There are circumstances when you should be investing while you are paying off low interest debt. Like a mortgage, you could have an interest debt that is below 6%. You can be paying that and investing because you are making more on your investments. But when you have a credit card debt, 25%, 20%, that is a family and that's an emergency. Pay it off first. It's a financial emergency. Don't joke with it. Do everything in your power. Remember this, because sometimes, right, I always like to go back to the Bible. Guys, listen here. I'm not a pastor, all right? I am not. I'm not the holiest guy you ever meet. I'm just a human being who struggles too along in life, and I always lean on the wisdom of God because I'm a Christian. I believe in the faith. I'm a man of faith, and I believe that there is a lot of wisdom that we can learn from the Bible, which is a practical book. And every time I have confusion in my life, I usually go back to that book amongst the many other books I read, but I go back to that book for some wisdom. Let me drop you a scripture here that means a lot. Proverbs 22:7. Proverbs 22:7 says what? Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Guys, listen, this is not emotional language. It is structural language. When you owe 25%, you are working, but someone else is eating and getting fat. And that person is not you. That person are the executives of Wells Fargo. That person are the executives of Visa. That person are the executives of American Express. That is why in my portfolio, I have a company called Visa. I have a company called MasterCard. I have a company called American Express because they'll never go out of business. People always have credit card debts and they'll be paying this 25% in interest. And some of us who own those shares of those companies will be making money. I don't want you to be one of those. Because every day before I start a live stream like this, I make a prayer for 30 seconds. I tell God, just speak through me. Use me as a vehicle to change somebody's life. Because a lot of things have changed my own life. I've benefited from grace. I've benefited from the messages of people I never knew. They touched me in different ways and it transformed my life. And if Mike, I can transform your life today because we had a chance to connect on this live stream, I want it to start happening today. Don't be feeding other people's destiny. Because as a borrower, you are a slave to the lender. You don't need to be a Christian. You don't need to believe in the word. These are practical things. These are realistic stuff, right? So the first step to get out of the savings, remember today we are talking about the fact that savings is not going to get you ahead. What you need to get ahead is multiplication of your money. But in order, of course, to be able to start multiplying your money, there are a few things you need to do. The first thing we talked about is building that emergency fund. The second thing we talked about is eliminating high interest debt. Now let's talk about the third thing. This is automating your investments. Automating your investments. You see, guys, there's something very powerful which we need to understand. Statistics indicate that people who automate their investments end up with 2 to 3% more results than people who don't. The reason why is because you cannot count only on the human body to deliver consistently over time. Recently, Amazon reported that a robot in an Amazon factory worked for 5 months without break. When you automate your savings, you automate your investments, what happens is that you don't have to make a physical decision. In fact, you don't even see the money because you have to understand the strategy. This is the blueprint. Let me give you the blueprint. You work at your job, if you have a job or if you have a business. Once you make money, of course, naturally, some will go out for taxes, right? If you are part of a 401k plan, which is a pre-tax deduction, they take that one out, right? Immediately the money comes, immediately they take the one for your 401k out. If you have like a Roth IRA, that too can go out, right? Immediately the money hits your bank account. If you have a brokerage account, it automatically takes that money from your bank account. Make sure you start paying yourself first, and then you start paying all the other bills that are available to pay. Because when you automate that process, what it does is that it automatically withdraws the money from your bank account, it puts it into your brokerage account, and then it automatically buys the assets. Because people need to understand, bringing money from your bank account into your brokerage account is not investing. The money is just lying dormant. You need to actually buy assets with that money. And I've noticed a lot of people come to me, they don't realize that difference. So if you're somebody who is sitting out there and you're wondering how to set this up, it's easy. There's a link down in my description of this video. Click on it, book a one-on-one call, let's have a conversation. And I can help you with all those things, right? And you'll be grateful. Trust me, because these are the things that make a difference. Building wealth, building significant progress with your financial life is not going to take some one major thing you do. No, are just little boring things that seem inconsequential, but over time they compound. So when you automate your systems, right, you want to automate end to end. You want to give instructions. Let's say you are on Fidelity, right? You want to give instructions on Fidelity. Hey, Fidelity, every month on this date, on this day of the week, every Friday of the week, I want you to go to my Wells Fargo account and take $500 and move it over to my Fidelity account. That is the first instruction you give. Then you go to your Fidelity account now, your brokerage account. You give the second instruction. You say, my brokerage account, every Monday, I want you to buy, with this $500, I want you to buy $100 worth of Google, $100 worth of Microsoft, $100 worth of VTI, $100 worth of QQQM. These are just examples I'm giving, guys. By any means, this is not financial advice, okay? I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just an educator. I'm sharing my experiences. Investments involve risk. You do your own due diligence. If you need coaching, you need guidance, you need a mentor, of course, you can reach out to me in different ways, right? But this is how you build an automated system. Once you do that, then you just go ahead with the lifestyle you've been living. Go you to work and you generate your income. That's it. That one is taking care of the business on the back end. Every once in a while, maybe every 3 months, if you have a coach, you have a mentor, you can meet with them, you rebalance your account, you see your portfolio, you make sure that it's still following the desires of what you aspire for. Because anytime you're investing, there have to be a plan, right? Another important thing about automating is also making sure that you have the right kind of accounts. I've done some videos on the different accounts. I'm still going to do one on, no, I haven't done a video on accounts specifically. I'm going to do that too this week, probably on Thursday or Friday. So keep an eye, subscribe to the channel so that way you'll be informed every time I'm coming online, right? So you're talking about another strategy here, which is called dollar cost averaging. That's another part of step 3, which is automation. Dollar cost averaging basically means that you set a buying frequency. In today's day and age we live, you can buy every day. You can set up that $500, for example, $1,000, whatever amount you have available in your brokerage account. You can automate that system to buy every day, or maybe every week, or once a month. The reason why dollar cost averaging is important is because you have to always remember the stock market is volatile. It doesn't just go up straight in a straight line. It goes up some days, it comes down. So think about it. In October of last year, Bitcoin, for example, was $120,000 a Bitcoin. Today, it is $69,000, which means if you are dollar cost averaging over a period of time, when it is 120, you buy. When it falls to 110, you buy. It goes to 115, you buy. It comes to 100, you buy. Today, it is 68, you buy. You will realize that over a period of time, your average cost, which is the average cost of your position, is lower. And as your dollar cost average over time, it becomes lower. Now, that is the strategy some people use. Some people, you can bring in lump sum amounts of money. We are in January now. For most people, you might be having end of year bonuses from your job. Some people are filing their taxes and you might be having tax returns. What are you doing with that money? Don't blow it on frivolities. Don't go buying things that you don't need. Don't go buying purses, shoes, bags, crazy stuff. You know what? Because those things excite you for a minute, but your investments buy you freedom for a lifetime. I need you to understand this mindset, guys. I need you to understand this, because these are the stuff that separates the winners from the losers. It's not a major stuff, it's the small things. You are in the spirit now. This is the beginning of the year. Between now and April 15, everybody will be filing taxes. You might be getting a tax refund. You might be happy. Oh, I just got a refund. Do you realize that you gave the government an interest-free loan? I need you to understand what I'm saying here. Do you realize that if they are refunding you $12,000, for example, it means you gave the government $12,000 to hold for you for 1 year and give you back the same amount of money? Does that make sense? That same $12,000 in 12 months at 10% could have generated $1,200 in growth for you. So you must understand, if you have a tax return, it's not free money. A lot of people think it's free money. It is not. It is your money. The government took your money, did it business, did whatever I wanted to do with the money, and then at the end of the year, it comes back and gives you the same money without interest. And you say, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, government. Thank you, President Trump. No, guys. I want you to move from that group. Leave that herd mentality. I want you to open your minds. I want you to be educated. I want you to understand how it works. If you don't understand how it works, you continue to struggle. You continue to work so hard and you don't see progress and you are wondering what is happening. If you are getting a tax return this year, dedicate at least 50 to 60% of that money to investing it on the stock market. You know why? Because it's money you really didn't have a plan for anyways. You weren't, that's not a saving scheme. You understand? If you're having a bonus from your work, invest a big part of it. Yes, spend some to enjoy life. Again, I'm not saying you have to become a miser. Don't do anything. That's not what I'm saying. I am just saying that you also have to remember that the number one goal while you are working is to be able to invest in a way that your work can become an option. These are things most of us were never taught when we came to this country. These are things most people don't understand about finance and building wealth. Remember, wealth is not only a money number. Wealth is the ability to buy freedom and options. Listen to me and listen to me well. Wealth is not only a number. The reason why we associate it with a number is that most of the people who have those numbers generally have the option and the freedom to do whatever they want. But wealth is really that freedom. Wealth is really being able to focus on your health. Wealth is being able to wake up in the morning and decide how you want to live your life. And you're not worried. Wealth is the ability to not be worried about bills that come through your mailbox. Wealth is the opportunity to know that if you have an emergency in your life doesn't crumble all of a sudden. So you need to understand these things, guys. When I'm talking here about the third step, which is automating your investment, it's not for fun. It's because these are the ways by which people build significant wealth. Dollar cost averaging, that's the second. Now, annual rebalancing. Annual rebalancing means every year you look through your investments and you rebalance the percentage assigned to a certain investment. For example, in my portfolio, I have investments that are growth oriented. So these are companies like Microsoft, the Googles, the Teslas. These are fast growing companies. At the same time, I also recognize I'll be 50 years in 1 year from today, right? I'll be 49 years young in this month, March. This is my birthday month. Actually, I'll be accepting gifts, all right? I'm just kidding. But I recognize that I also don't have the same amount of time my 18-year, my 19-year-old daughter has. So I have to be able to balance between investing in growth assets and also investing in assets that might not grow as fast but don't have as much risk associated with them, which are called dividend producing assets. These are more mature companies like Walmart, like JP Morgan Chase. These are companies that really don't grow as fast and they don't lose as fast, right? So every year every 6 months to a year, I have to do a rebalancing. Rebalancing just means I have to review my portfolio again and see whether the percentage assignments to these different categories of investments still make sense based on my goals and where I'm trying to go. So the third thing about automating is also making sure you rebalance at the end of the year. Now let's go to the fourth thing you want to do. You want to make sure you add growth exposure. So we've talked about your emergency fund, right? We've talked about paying off debt. We've talked about automating your investments. Now we want to talk about adding the growth exposure. And these are all the antidotes to savings. This is why savings is not going to help you, because you have to implement these steps I'm talking about. These steps I am talking about, these are the things that will help you go beyond just saving your money. You want to add the fourth step, you want to add a growth exposure. And the growth exposure now, these are companies that grow a little bit faster. They have a higher risk, but they grow faster. And these are companies that are mostly involved in cutting edge technology and driving the innovations of the future. But when you're investing in this category, you want to be careful, because in this category, there are many companies that are growth companies, but not most of them are not capable of withstanding downturns. What I mean by that, there are many companies that belong to the growth category. There are a lot of AI companies, there are a lot of technology companies, there are a lot of engineering companies, a lot of energy companies that are growth companies, right? Energy, maybe not, but technology companies. But not all of them are proven. When I say proven, not all of them have been around long enough for you to determine whether they are really mature. Not all of them have revenue coming in from selling their solutions, because you must remember, at the end of the day, if the company is not selling a solution or selling a product that people buy, they don't make money, then the company is wasting its time. It's not going to survive, right? So you want to make sure, even though you want to invest in the growth category, you want to make sure you know these companies and you understand. Now, that might be complex for a lot of people. That's why if you are just beginning with investing, start with index funds. There are growth index funds like VOO, for example. That's a growth index fund. You want to do something like QQQM. QQQM covers the 100 known financial companies in the NASDAQ 100, right? You want to invest in those kind of index funds because the rate of growth is faster. Sometimes when the market is turning, when there's a downturn like now, the rate of drop will be faster, but over a long period of time, you are ahead, because that is your growth engine. That is what really gives your portfolio a lot of firepower, right? The S&P 500 fund, for example, technology funds grew by about 25% last year, some of them 28%. That's a good growth rate, right? It doesn't mean it does that every year, but when you average it over a 10-year period, the growth rate is somewhere about 18% for QQQM. So that's not bad. That's significant growth. So you want to have a combination of that. You want to have the growth element, because this growth element is actually the combustion engine. It is the fuel in your portfolio to drive it forward. And this involves, AI companies, it involves technology sectors, it involves global equities too. When I talk about these things, we don't talk only about equities within America. We also talk about equities of companies out of America. But the most of the companies that will produce the most amount of profits for you are American companies. Let's be honest. The US stock market is the largest stock market in the world. Bar none, the US stock market has produced 10% growth every year, for averaging 10% returns every year for the last 110 years. So there's a track record. That's why I bet on it more than any other stock market. I invest in international funds, but it's a small percentage of my portfolio. Honestly, it's not big. And that's what I do. You do what you think is good for you. If you need some coaching, you know what to do. Drop me a message, book a time with me. But I'm just telling you how these things work, right? Because it is all about the framework. It is not hype. I'm not here to inspire you. I don't want you to feel motivated. Yes, I want you to feel motivated, but I want you to feel more motivation based on the fact that you have a structure, you have a framework, you have a template you can use, more than just feeling hyped and feeling good. No, 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 no. This is not the business. Okay? We are not in the business of getting you hyped and motivated. And no, no, no. I want to help you move forward. That's why if you listen to my live stream and you go home and you don't implement one thing, then you're not doing a favor to yourself. You're not. I don't want only people who come here, listen, take information, feel good, and go home. I want people who want to act on this information, because that's what is going to take you ahead. That's what is going to change you. That's what is going to bring the transformation that you're looking for, right? So it's all about the framework. You don't want to do this without understanding. That's why when I teach you like a workshop, because I want you to take notes. I want you to follow a logical process so your mind can comprehend these things and you can easily execute them. So think about it, guys. If you are 40 plus, maybe you're 35, you're 40, you're 45, you don't have time to let money sleep. You don't have time to have a 50,000, 100,000 in a savings account. Guys, you don't. Honestly, you don't, because you have to understand life really has four quarters. I break down life into 4 quarters, okay? Just so that it helps give me perspective. You have preparation age. The preparation age is all the way to about 20, right? So from the age of 20, 25 to 35, that's your first quarter. 35 to 45, that's your second quarter. 45 to 55, that's your third quarter. 55 to 65, that's your fourth quarter. After the age of 65, you are starting to get now into extra time. I'm not saying that you cannot win, but you and me know that the chances of winning a game in extra time is very slim. So basically, if you are in your 40s, 45, you are in the first, or if you're in the 30s to 50, you are in your first 3 quarters, right? And in that time, as you progress into the next quarter, you realize that you don't have as much time. And because you don't have as much time, you have to get your money working for you, because your body is slowly not going to be able to work for you. That's why structure matters. Structure matters more than experimentation. You need structure. You need a system that is simple, repeatable, and implementable. You cannot save your way to financial freedom. If you don't take anything from what I'm saying tonight, take this one thing. You are not going to save your way to freedom. Everything we were taught about saving growing up, from the different countries we came from to where you are now listening to me, it is not wrong, but it is not enough. It is because that is all our parents knew. That is all the leaders of our communities knew. That is all what was available in our communities. But today, whatever part of the world you are living, most likely you have a stock market there. Invest in that stock market. If you're in Korea, invest in the Korean market. If you are in Hong Kong, do that. If you're in Nigeria, invest in the Nigerian market. In Cameroon, invest in the Douala Stock Exchange. If you're in Ghana, South Africa, Nigeria, you are in China, wherever you are. And you know what? You can also invest in the US market wherever you are today. You have a platform called Interactive Brokers. Again, I'm not getting any kind of commission from them. I'm just sharing information here. You do your own research. With Interactive Brokers, you can actually access the US stock market. But you don't want to do that if you don't really understand how it works. That is why you need a mentor. You know what? People think mentorship is expensive. Try ignorance. Try ignorance. Right? That's why you need a mentor. You need somebody to help give you the guidance so that way you start right, especially when you're in the 30s, 40s. You don't want to take chances. You don't want to do things that will not compound your money because you don't have as much time. So understand me, guys. You are not going to save your way to freedom. You are not. You cannot. You must own your way to freedom. You must. That's why you hear me talking about, and this is a movement I'm actually starting, right? I've started it, but I'll be propagating it soon. I'm actually preparing the things for that. It is called the era of ownership movement. This is the era of ownership, guys. This is not the era of timidity. This is not the era of shyness. This is not the era of savings. This is not the era of playing on the touchline. This is the era of ownership. If you are not owning in this time and age, you're not owning in this generation, understand you are disappearing, you are withering. Trust me on this. Because for the first time in the history of humanity, there are multiple different ways by which you can own. And I want to teach you those ways. I want to teach you how you can get basic things like your Costco membership for free because you own Costco stocks and the stocks pay you dividends, and that dividends is more than how much you pay for your membership. I want to teach you how you can make money from Facebook without necessarily having a big following. If you own Meta shares, Facebook pays some dividends, the shares rise. As the shares rise in value, you are making more money for yourself without necessarily posting videos every day. If that's not what you want to do, better advise you to, because all of us are a brand. You are a brand. You want to make sure your voice is heard. Your story is valuable. There are 8 billion people in the world today. Somebody wants to listen to your story. That's a story for another day. I have other videos I'll do on that, right? But I want you to understand that you're not going to save your way to financial freedom. The only way you get there, you must own your way to it, right? Ownership is the key. Ownership, owning assets, because the wealthy don't save more than you, they own more than you. That's how it works. They don't save, they own. Ownership includes owning assets like stocks on the equity markets, owning businesses. Everybody, I always tell people who come to me for coaching, I say, especially if you're living in America, it doesn't matter whether you are an employee, you must own a business. Start a business. To register a business is $300 in the state of Texas. It's $200 in other states. Register an LLC. Start a business. What do you have? What do you have as a skill? Are you good with baking? Start baking pies and selling. Advertise it on your Facebook community. I live in a community here in Texas. This community has a Facebook page and 6,000 to 7,000 homes. That page has about 12,000 people. There was a time when my mother-in-law was more energetic. She used to bake meat pie. I will go to the community and I will make a simple Facebook post in our community. And I will say, listen, I am baking meat pie. It's going to cost $2 a piece. If you're buying 12 instead of $24, you pay $22. If you want some, put your order by 3 p.m. on Monday and you'll get it on Tuesday. Sometimes I used to have orders we cannot even handle because she has to bake 800 pies to be delivered. I need you guys to understand, guys, right? What is the skill you have? Do you know how to braid hair? Okay. Do you know how to teach people something? What is the job you've been doing for the last 25 years? Don't you think somebody wants to learn something about that? Can you just talk about that job? Can you talk about some of the things you've learned? This is one of the best ways you can go about this. Just imagine that, let's say you've been working now in your job for 15, 20 years, right? Imagine that they brought somebody 10 years younger than you. How would you coach that person knowing what you know now? Take yourself back 10 years. How are you going to coach them? Everything I talk to you is not hearsay. Part of it is a lot of it is experiences, and a lot of it are proven concepts. My experiences just went ahead to confirm those concepts. You cannot build wealth by saving. It's a concept that is clear. You can try it by yourself. You will only learn, and you might learn when it's too late. That's why when I see you watching videos like this, I am impressed for the few people who are on the line, because a lot of people don't take their financial life seriously. They care about every other thing. And at the time in their lives when they need to take this seriously, number one, they no longer have time. Number two, they no longer have the physical ability to generate money. And number three, most importantly, their health might start failing. And at that time, the money is getting short too. And you know the triple threat. I call it the three devils: getting old, being sick, and broke. Getting old, we all are going to get old. You can delay it a little bit. Getting sick, yes, you can manage it, by living a healthier life. But generally, as you get older, you might get some sicknesses. But being broke is directly in our control. Being broke is directly in our control, guys. And when I teach these things, I'm also reminding myself. That's the beautiful message here. You guys don't realize that. Studies indicate that when you teach something, you retain 90% of it and you tend to practice it too. That's why I encourage each and every one of you looking at me to also make sure you are building your own brand. Building your own brand means sharing your messages. What do you know? What do you have as a skill? Are you good with your own car? Are you one of those? I have a friend of mine who knows how to change his own oil. He knows how to change brakes. And you know what? Every weekend, that guy has one or two cars come to his driveway. His driveway. They will come there. He will change their brakes, change their oil, and things like that. Sometimes he makes $400, sometimes $300. And I've helped coach him. I've helped build him a portfolio, and he invests that money immediately in an ETF. He's been forced now because the oil has been draining a little bit on his driveway. Neighbors have complained. So you know what? He has moved it to his. He has a storage unit. So he just gets the guys that come to the storage. He gives them the passcode. They come into the storage, and he changes their this thing in front of his storage unit. Guys, listen here. What I'm just saying is that we are living in the greatest time the world has ever seen. We are living in the greatest time the world has ever seen, guys. The opportunities are incredible, but you have to you have to avail yourself to that opportunity. Last week on Thursday, I had a webinar called the Clarity, Wealth, and Legacy webinar. Listen, if there's anybody on the line here who was part of that webinar, I want you to tell people what you gained from that. It was incredible. It was a wonderful webinar. People left with a lot of information, but most importantly, practical steps. Everybody who was at that webinar should be able to start investing. If they weren't investing yet, or if they're already investing, they should know exactly what they need to do. And stay tuned, because we are going to be doing the webinar again in the next couple of months. So when it comes up again, you want to make sure you don't miss. All right. But these are also things I'm putting myself out there. I'm using the knowledge I have, the experience I have, the gift I have, and I'm bringing it to the marketplace because I own that information now. What you're listening to, this is my information. This is my private IQ. This is my intellectual property. I own it. This is a book. This is my first book I wrote a year ago. It will be a year this March. I published it on my birthday last year. My birthday is coming up the 8th of March. It's 1 year today. This is my intellectual property. Nobody is going to take it away from me. This book right here, I've done it, and I've done it once. It's going to keep selling. It's going to keep selling. It's going to keep selling. 20 years from today, somebody will still be buying this book. The message I'm passing on to you right now, this message, I'm going to keep it. You know what? It is on YouTube. It is on Facebook. It is on Instagram. Those of you watching the live stream today, that's good. You come back next week, you will find it. You can watch it again. You will learn something. If you're busy right now, you can stop, move on to something else. Come back, you will learn. In 5 years, these same videos will still keep popping up again on your status, and you will still watch it. That's what I'm talking about, guys. You must understand the levers of the new economy we live in. The name of the game is ownership. If you're not owning, understanding that you're disappearing. So you're owning equities on the market, stocks, bonds, ETFs, index funds. You are owning businesses. It doesn't have to be a big business. You are owning real estate. It doesn't necessarily have to be the house you're living in. If you can afford a home, fine. If not, you can buy assets that are real estate backed. You can buy something called the Real Estate Investment Trust. You are investing in a company that invests in real estate. You can join forces with people and buy into a single family home. There are companies that invest in businesses, in malls, in single family homes. You can buy shares of those companies. You are investing, you are owning digital assets. I've talked to you about the digital assets I own. That's intellectual property. I'm cloning my voice now and building intellectual property to around that. Let me tell you an interesting story. I was at the motor vehicle office today to do a registration for my wife's car. And you know what? I met a gentleman there, and that gentleman showed me something. He's an older guy, he's 67, and he and his friend are building an app. They've already built the app. And that app permits you to be able to monetize your face and your likeness, which means therefore that if I meet you, let's say we are at the airport, and I take a selfie of you, you can immediately evaluate your value at that time using that application, and then give me a written permission to use that selfie, and I pay you upfront. Guys, listen, guys, it's just an incredible time. But the only difference is going to be the people who have the ownership mindset. That is why before I ever talk to you about investing, I must talk to you first about the mindset rewiring. Your identity flip. We must switch our identity from the mindset of workers to the mindset of owners. We must switch our identity from the mindset of employees to the mindset of CEO of your life. I said the mindset, I didn't say your life. Keep your jobs if you need to. These are decisions that are personal. But your mind has to be the mindset of an owner. When you are going to that job every morning, the question you should be asking yourself is not what are you getting? It's what am I becoming? I don't know if I make sense, guys. I don't know if I make sense. What am I becoming? Because once you ask yourself that question, what am I becoming? What it does is that it permits you to start rewiring that identity, to start understanding that, yes, at this point, I work. That is good. I make an income. But how can I use that income as a seed to plant so that way it multiplies and buys me freedom? Every dollar you invest is a step towards your freedom. I want you to understand that, guys. Every dollar you invest, you're actually buying freedom. Thank you, my man, Felix Fortune. Oh, wow. My big brother, Martin Doom, thank you for hopping on. Thank you for hopping on. I'm glad. Who is that? Charlestown. Charlestown is on. Wonderful. Jerome from San Antonio, right? The Baron is on. Wonderful. Thank you, guys. I hope you are taking some notes. I hope it's making sense, right? Guys, so you need to understand these things, because once you understand this concept, it changes everything. You have to understand that I am not here. I'm not one of those who will go, you know what? No, quit your job. No, I'm not part of that. 70% of people aspire to be their own bosses, only 3% will end up becoming. So most people will still build a good life, will still build a meaningful life, will still build a comfortable living, working for other people. 85% of people are going to build their lives working for other people. That is a good thing. Be proud of it. In fact, we are living in a time today when it's a privilege to even have a job, for God's sake. How many people do? Right? But you need to understand the money you make from that job, even the job itself should be a seed and not a fruit. You must always keep asking yourself, what am I becoming? What am I becoming? How else can I expand myself? What else can I do? When I leave at 5 o'clock, what is my 5 to 9 p.m. plan? Right? What is the skill I have? What is the knowledge I have? What can I be doing with that? How can I leverage? Because at that point too, you are much more younger. You are much more agile in your mind. You want to use that time. Right, guys? You want to use that time. So this is the era of ownership. This is the era of owning stuff. And when we're talking here about owning, it doesn't necessarily mean it's huge stuff. No, it's owning your ideas. It's owning the stocks you have on the stock market. It's owning assets. It's owning real estate. It's owning different things that can help with building portfolios that you can leverage and use it for something significant. Think about it, guys. And in this process of owning, you must also recognize that it comes with a certain amount of risk. It comes with a certain amount of uncertainty. So your job is to minimize your risk. It's not to eliminate, because you'll never eliminate the risk, right? There will be market crashes. The last 2 months, the market has been going down. But the beautiful thing about that is that those companies that are proven that you want to invest in, they are at a discount now. So you want to buy them now because the prices are going to go up again. And when they go up, that's when you make money. So the people who build wealth actually build wealth not when the market is hot. They build wealth during down markets. Because the recovery is always almost certain. It has been the same way for 100 years. America will attack Iran. It's not the first time. America attacked Iran in 1979. The stock market dropped, but it rose after that. America has attacked Iraq. It dropped, but it rose. America went to Afghanistan. The market dropped, but rose after that. COVID came, the market dropped, but rose after that. The dot-com crash came, the market dropped, but it rose after that. Guys, don't get fooled. Keep your eyes on the prize. Stay focused. Don't worry about the White House. Worry about your own house. Don't lose it. Don't get distracted. Turn off CNN if you need to turn it off. There's nothing you can do. Do you want to go fight in Iran? Do you want to go fight in the military? I'm not, and listen, I'm not trying to be inhumane here. I am just saying that sometimes as human beings, we tend to focus on things that we cannot control instead of focusing on the things that matters to us and we can control. What you can control right now is making sure you are investing in assets. You are investing in ownership. You are working to become an owner. And when I talk about ownership here, it doesn't have to be something that's visible. It doesn't have to be a physical building. We come from a culture where ownership has to be visible. Until I got to understand that in the new dispensation we live, there are multi-millionaires who are your neighbors. They don't own no physical building, but you don't know. They own shares in companies. They own intellectual property. They have books selling thousands of copies on Amazon. They have YouTube channels that are 2-3 million subscribers and they are making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a month. At the end of the year, they're making $2 million, but you don't know them. They walk by you every day. They don't have a house. They don't have no big thing. I am just saying we must get in that mindset of ownership. And when we get in that mindset, we must understand that it involves a certain amount of risk. And when it involves a certain amount of risk, our number one work is to educate ourselves so we minimize our risk. Because remember, cash silently erodes due to inflation. You are not going to save your way to freedom. You have to understand that the greatest risk is doing nothing. If you do nothing, it's worse than doing something. Because one of the things not everybody, but one of the things the people who don't take action will always say, what if I lose money? You are already losing purchasing power at 3% a year, keeping the money. Can you control that? No. Every year, inflation, you are losing 3% anyways. So every year that you not do nothing, you are losing 3%. And you have to understand fear is not a strategy. Structure is the strategy. A structured, simple, repeatable process. This is the mindset blueprint I talk about. This is the wealth blueprint I talk about all the time. My wealth and legacy blueprint. It starts with clarity, understanding clearly what it is that you want. What is it you are aspiring for? How long you want to invest? What are your goals in life? What is your retirement number? That's the first thing. The second thing is protection. You want to protect your own life first. A cheap 30-year insurance. Term life, simple. It covers the cost that if you're not alive today, it needs to be covered. Your home, your kids' education, your wife or your partner can pay off your home and things like that. Calculate that entire number and buy a cheap 30-year life insurance policy for that, a term life insurance policy. The second thing under protection, you want to have an emergency fund. Life will always happen. If you get into an accident, you lose your car, you lose your job. Can you survive for 3 months? Can you survive for 4 months? You need to have some money saved in an account for that, which you can access easily. The third thing, you want to now look at multiplying your money. That involves now investing on the stock market, investing in assets, investing in real estate. That's the third thing. The fourth thing now you want to do, you want to accelerate that multiplication. How do you accelerate the multiplication? By looking for other sources of income. I've talked to you about some simple different things you can do. When you bring in that extra money, you invest that extra money so that now that multiplication that is happening, you are adding fuel to it. You are putting more fuel to it and it's growing faster. The fifth thing now is perpetuation. When you've done all of these things, how do you make sure that your hard work, your sweat leaves beyond you? That is when we talk about different things now, like trust and wills and all of that stuff. This is the blueprint I talk about in the Wealth Clarity and Legacy webinar. That webinar is lights out, guys. No brag here. That webinar is life-changing. The next time I am launching that webinar, make sure you join it, because the things you are going to learn, the things you are going to get a step-by-step plan, which you can take and go start implementing, it will change the story for you, right? So don't fall into that. Fear is not a strategy. The strategy is structure, a simple and repeatable process. That is a strategy. Some people will tell you, you know what? I don't understand investing. Therefore, that's an education gap. The same people who tell you they don't understand investing, you're going to share this video, them, they will not watch it. You know, you can take a horse to the stream, you can't force it to drink water. So you know what? When you entered the plane coming to America, what did the air hostess say? I don't know if anybody remembers. When you board a plane, what do they usually tell you? Put on your oxygen mask first in case of an emergency. Right or wrong? They don't tell you put your child's oxygen mask first. Put your spouse's oxygen mask first. No, they say put your oxygen mask first. Then you can try to help somebody else. You know why? Because if you are not helping yourself first, you cannot help nobody. So for right now, sometimes in life, it's important to be selfish. Help yourself first, right? Share this information with other people. If they want to learn, fine. If they don't want, no problem. Don't force nobody. Listen, let me tell you something, guys. Let me tell you something I've learned in this life. Progress in life is a coalition of the willing. Progress in life is a coalition of the willing. The things I know, the things I'm teaching you, I've spent enormous amounts of money to learn. I've spent over the last 6 years, I've spent at least $80,000 in mentorship. Just paying people to help me, to show me the way, to teach me, to show me the road. All right? But the important thing is not even that. It's the personal investment to want to learn it, the willingness, the hunger to want to learn it, to want to understand it, to want to make sure that some of the things that I don't want to happen in my life, I am in control of that. I want to make sure that the first 10, 15 years of our life when we're not informed, I want to catch up with that by doing the right things. And I want you listening to me to catch up. That's why you have to be part of my community. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe. If you're not following me on Facebook, make sure you follow me. On Instagram, follow me. If you look in the description, you see a link. You can also join our private WhatsApp community. In that private community, I share a lot of information I don't share on social media. I help the people who are part of my community to grow steadily over time, right? So it's very important, guys. Now, let's keep making some progress here, because if you don't understand how to invest, that is not an excuse. That's an education gap. Learn it. Follow mentors, right? It's not a market problem. This is why we teach structure and not hype. This is why I teach structure, a simple, repeatable plan, because it's not hype here. This is real stuff. This is life, right? So let's do this. I want you to understand. I know we're winding down slowly, but I want you to understand this. Protection without multiplication leads to stagnation. Multiplication without protection leads to chaos. So you need to understand both. You need to understand the protection piece. Protection piece, make sure you have your insurance, make sure you have a emergency fund. Make sure you have some money saved, which is called your emergency fund. But that is not it. You need to make sure you also have the multiplication piece. And the multiplication piece now is the investment piece of it, right? So guys, listen here. If you truly want help structuring your ownership plan, if you want clarity of what to invest in and how to automate it intelligently, then you have to book a strategy call. Just look at the link is on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook. Book a strategy call with me. It's a 1-hour call. And in this call, it is not a conversation. This is a strategy call. We sit down, we have a conversation. I explore all the different circumstances that is assigned to you as an individual. What is your situation? And we put together a plan, right? Because listen, you don't want to guard your money. You want to start positioning your money. Guarding your money is never going to take you far. Trust me on this one. I know what I'm talking about. Guarding your money is not going to take you too far. What you need is positioning that money so that that money starts multiplying. And when it's multiplying, what it does is that it puts you in a very upward perspective and trajectory. That is what makes the difference. That is what is going to help you get to the destination you aspire to get to. So don't hesitate, guys. It's been a great time hanging out with you. I hope this gives you some perspective. I hope it gives you some information. Don't forget, next time you're coming on, I do this live every day from 7:30 in the night, right? I'm considering moving it a little earlier. I don't know. Let me know down in the comment section if you think it's a wise idea to move it earlier, if you want me earlier. But this is what I want to remind you guys. You all watching me, some of you I know, some I may never get a chance to meet in person. But I know that some of the circumstances you might have been raised in might have spoken upon your mind, spoken upon your spirit to make you believe that maybe you're not smart enough, you're not intelligent enough, you're not courageous enough, or you don't have what it takes to be meaningful, to build a life of meaning, to build wealth in this time, and to bequeath something significant to your next generation. I want to remind you that that is a big lie. Whatever who spoke upon your life, whatever message the life that you grew up in tried to convince you, you are enough. You are only a representation of the name you answer to, not the name you are called. So it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what you are desiring for your own life. What is it that you want to do? I want to remind you that you are enough. So go out there, be well, be blessed, and by all means, never stop being a blessing to somebody. And until tomorrow night, I'll see you on the next live stream. Bye for now.